Clark Isaac from the Seventh Trumpet, where we announce the kingdom of God. It's a pleasure to bring you prophetic fulfillments, current day events, and spiritual guidance, all in the name of Lord Rael, the returned Messiah, whose name means the Word of God. Today we're going to have a really interesting topic because this particular topic is interesting to me because I find it very important to explore multiple sources of information. There's what's called an echo chamber in a lot of different groups of people. Echo chambers have been in societies and cultures through many generations. It's basically compartmentalizing information, only looking at one side of things. And it's important we look at all sides of things. It's also really important that we look at the facts. And it's hard to see all of the facts when we're only looking at one type of source of information. So let's explore first, what is an echo chamber? Really get into it. And second, see examples of that in modern day and see how what's contrary to echo chambers, the spreading of truth far and wide, is actually predicted in the Bible. So let's get started, shall we? Here's a little video we can watch together called What is an Echo Chamber?
Information can come from many different sources and perspectives. But when you're only... This is an environment where a person only encounters perspectives...
Start that from the beginning. Sorry about that.
Many different sources and perspectives. But when you're only hearing the same perspectives and opinions over and over again, you may be in something called an echo chamber. An echo chamber is an environment where a person only encounters information or opinions that reflect and reinforce their own.
Let's read that again. I mean, all together now. I think it's really important for us to understand that point, right? An environment where a person only encounters information or opinions that reflect and reinforce their own. So, and this is something that we can all ask ourselves, and I do mean everyone, really. It's important that we open our minds to other perspectives, and importantly, facts are all over the place, not just in one direction on any topic. So, echo chamber is an environment where a person or persons encounters only information or opinions that reflect or reinforce their own. So it's basically saying that you're not encountering any information that's contrary to what you already believe, to what's already established in your mindset. That is essentially what an echo chamber is according to the Oxford Dictionary. So let's continue, shall we?
Echo chambers can create misinformation and distort a person's perspective so they have difficulty considering opposing viewpoints and discussing complicated topics. They're fueled in part by confirmation bias, which is the tendency to favor info that reinforces existing beliefs. Echo chambers can happen anywhere information is exchanged, whether it's online or in real life. But on the internet, almost anyone can quickly find like-minded people and perspectives via social media and countless news sources.
So that's something really important for us to look at, is while it is easy to find multiple sources of information, it's also really easy to find exactly what we want to find. A lot of people would argue that the internet is the biggest set of echo chambers known to man in all of the history of man. And that's essentially true. Most of us do tend to flock towards people who agree with us. It's just a natural tendency. In fact, you would have to go against your own nature to try and find sources contrary to what you believe, if not just to argue those points, but to actually be open to those ideas and to take, or even to take the information that they present as possible fact is very difficult. So I think this is something that we can, benefit from, a little self-examination.
Like-minded people and perspectives via social media and countless news sources. This has made echo chambers far more numerous and easy to fall into. They're also tricky to recognize, especially if you're in one. If you're ever wondering if a social group or website may be an echo chamber, stop and think. Do they tend to only give one perspective on an issue? Is that viewpoint primarily supported by rumor or incomplete evidence? Are facts ignored whenever they go against that viewpoint? If you answered yes to any of these questions, you may have found an echo chamber.
So, essentially, echo chambers exist everywhere, even in groups where there may be a tendency towards just looking at the facts. Those echo chambers tend to create themselves by human nature. We're going to flock towards social clusters of people that agree with our ideas. It's a mutually beneficial exchange and a positive exchange, because people who agree with each other, they tend to get along better. It's just the way things are. If we're ever going to get out of the mindset of an echo chamber, it's not by distancing ourselves from the echo chambers. No, it's by being willing to explore new ideas within both other echo chambers that are not a part of our own, and also assisting others within our own echo chambers to explore ideas outside of that echo chamber, outside of that group of people. Maybe not even ideas, maybe just entertaining facts from outside sources. It's really important that we start to look at things more, or rather less, bias. Objectively is, I guess that would be the word of the day, wouldn't it? So, let's continue.
There's no perfect way to avoid echo chambers, but there are a few tips that can help you stay on the right track. Make a habit of checking multiple news sources to ensure you're getting complete, objective info. Interact with people of different perspectives, and take care to discuss new ideas with facts, patience, and respect. Finally, remember that just because you want something to be true doesn't make it fact. No matter where you go or who you meet, always take the time to stay informed and avoid echo chambers.
So that's probably one of the points that I might disagree with, because echo chambers are everywhere, and to simply avoid echo chambers just means to isolate yourself, and that's not really what any of us need, is isolation, especially in this day and age. Isolation is actually a really big problem in society today, and in fact, it only furthers us to create more closely knit echo chambers, which we really don't need more of that. If we're going to give a proper example of how media bias tends to encourage these echo chambers that aren't of any benefit to anyone, we can actually look to the news. And unfortunately, not just Twitter, not just Facebook, but also YouTube has been a part of creating these little thought bubbles we call echo chambers. And more recently, just last night, YouTube was shut down for 2 hours. Now, there's a lot of speculation as to why that was happening. YouTube didn't give an explanation as to why it happened, but there's other news which does say exactly what we should have expected to happen. It's been happening for over a year, actually more than that, but it's come out since a year ago that thousands of YouTube channels have been removed, and it's all through an implementation of hateful content policy. Basically, what YouTube's doing is they're flagging videos to be removed. They're flagging channels to be shut down or demonetized because of what they would deem as hateful speech or harmful speech. A good movie to watch, a couple of different movies to watch actually that would characterize this. One would be the term, or it's sort of a, you may have heard of this, Orwellian. And the reason for that term is because of a novel written by George Orwell called 1984. There's a movie about it. It's not the best of movies, especially if you're not into older movies. But there's if you're willing to sit through some of that older style of making movies, there is an important message there. And there's a lot of things happening then in this Orwellian picture of a dystopic future and what's happening now. What they called thought crimes is mirroring almost exactly what we would call harmful speech or hate speech. There's a great deal of censorship in that story, just as there is in this story we see playing out in the world that we live in. Do you want to see a more modern version of that type of story? I would say watch Equilibrium. It's a not so well-known Christian Bale movie, but it's really good. It's actually a good action flick too. But they have what's called sense offense, and I don't really want to get into all the ins and outs of the sci-fi lore there, but it's something similar to what would be considered thought crime in 1984. So those are a couple good movies to watch to get a little bit of context of a dystopic future that we're actually coming closer and closer to every day. So CNBC is, and it's not just CNBC. It's basically the far left media has been doing their best to censor these alternate viewpoints outside of their own echo chamber. Anyone that disagrees with their narrative, what they want to be the absolute truth for you to know, they want to make sure that they get taken down. And they're even pointing out this fact and calling out YouTube directly that they're dissatisfied with how YouTube is implementing their policies. That they're saying that they're not doing enough, and they're going to continue with this narrative that Biden won the election, despite the fact that the Electoral College hasn't voted yet, and they're going to continue to say that that the allegations about voter fraud are completely unfounded, even though there's multiple whistleblowers, eyewitness reports, and simply blatant facts that they can't disprove, that have been nothing but proven. Even the evidence of those things itself has been silenced, and people such as Mr. Obvious has had his whole channel demonetized quite recently, and that's with no strikes against it. And another individual called Josiah Rises also had his channel demonetized. And you can see how many hundreds of thousands of subscribers these people have. When you have a subscribership that large, producing videos is your livelihood. I mean, it very well could be your livelihood. So when a person like this maybe he's not deplatformed necessarily, but being demonetized is a significant hit to his livelihood. Leftists got these people fired, and what they got fired for was for making videos, reporting the facts as they saw them, and giving their opinions. Essentially, thought crime. I don't understand how. I mean, how can we understand that this could ever be a good thing? Okay, maybe we disagree with what these people say or think, and maybe we feel justified in silencing them. But to allow policies like this to be implemented in this world and in whatever country we're living in, society that we're a part of, it doesn't matter what echo chamber we have. It's really not important what we believe as opposed to what are the facts. And if people aren't allowed to present their facts, and they're not allowed to present their opinions because it doesn't go along with what Big Brother is going to allow us to say or think openly, we have to keep it to ourselves, or agree with what Big Brother says, it brings to question, how far are we willing to let that go? And how far must it go before it's too late? Before Big Brother decides that a lot of the things that you might enjoy are no longer appropriate. There's nothing you could say against it, because you've already allowed these policies to be implemented, because to you, it was a pleasing idea to silence people you didn't agree with. And now, you're on the receiving end. That could happen very quickly. And just to be clear, there are some important facts to take note of about political candidates such as Joe Biden. This individual, Joe Biden, he's made a lot of campaign promises, and it doesn't ever take him long to be proven that he's a liar. And I'm just going to show you one example where he lied 5 days before the election just to get votes. And now that he feels like that he's secured your vote, that he's secured the election, now that he feels comfortable with it, he's recanted. He's flip-flopping on a very important issue. What's that issue? The COVID-19 lockdown. He promised people that he would not include a countrywide lockdown in his COVID-19 plan. His plan to help the nation recover from COVID-19, he promised that it didn't include a countrywide lockdown. This is November 3rd that this was reported by the Washington Times. Well, guess what happened? Guess what Newsweek reported just yesterday? President Joe Biden said, or alleged President-elect Joe Biden said that he will do everything possible to get COVID-19 under control. And what does that include? He says, I would shut it down. I would shut down the country. That's the context there. I would shut it down. I would listen to the scientists. Of course, the scientists that you choose, of course. But contrary to what he promised, I'd say it's pretty clear he's rolling over. And one campaign promise that probably got a few people to go, oh, good, at least we have that. At least we have the fact that he's not going to lock us down any further. Nope. No, he lied. That's not what he meant. He meant to deceive you, and he may have succeeded. Very grateful to have a comment. Sister Kelly Patrick, Vicar General and wife of Lord Rael, our Queen. Thank you for commenting. I'll go ahead and read your comment for everyone, and let's talk a little bit about that. She says, it's a very complicated topic as the media is not telling the whole truth. Pictures are being painted constantly, and it's becoming worse. So soon they will be shut down when Christ takes over because they are not telling the whole truth. But on the flip side, you see things on YouTube getting shut down, blocked, censored, because they are trying to tell the whole truth. Many extremes on all ends at this time. I think that there is a platform where people can give their ideas, opinions, etc., but not always fact, reality. So it cannot be used for news. Many contrasts here. Well, sister, you're right. There is a few platforms we can use for this. And even while the censorship is occurring on specific, very popular platforms, we, instead of Facebook, we have VK. And those are just the two letters, VK. So go to vk.com if you want an alternative to Facebook. It's also where we have our primary alternative international congregation of Lord Rael. Go ahead and search for it. We've talked about it many times in this video. I'll even provide a link for you in the chat here just go ahead and type it, vk.com/groups we'll just go vk.com. Just go to vk.com. From there, search International Congregation of Lord Rael. Okay, just search for that. You see it up there on the screen? Go there. And not only that, there's alternatives for Twitter. I guess what would you call it? Parler? Yeah, Parler. It does have its political bias on Parler. Unfortunately, it doesn't allow expression all the time of free and openly of new ideas, and it does have its own sort of echo chamber, but that's okay. It is an alternative to Twitter. A lot of people have been getting banned from Twitter. And an alternative to YouTube is something like BitChute or Dailymotion. I wouldn't say that they're the ideal alternatives. They're not anything like what they're not anything like what YouTube used to be. But that's okay. We have what we have, and unfortunately it's not perfect. That is the unfortunate part. But the nice part about all of this is that someday, very soon, it's all about to change. Yeshua the Messiah, 2,000 years ago, he promised this, and it was reflected in one of his Gospels by the accounting of Apostle Luke. In chapter 12 and verse 2, it says, "For there is nothing covered that will not be revealed, neither anything secret that will not be known. For everything that you will say in the darkness shall be heard in the light, and whatever you whispered in an ear, in an inner chamber, will be preached on the rooftops." It's a beautiful promise. It's a beautiful promise that the truth of all things is going to be revealed. And in fact, in a lot of ways, this is already happening. It's a very interesting connotation to say that what was whispered in an ear in an inner chamber will be preached on the rooftops. It's essentially what's happening through our connection to each other on the internet. But when he says that there will be nothing covered that will not be revealed, neither anything secret that will not be known, well, that great revealing of everything and everyone, it's coming really soon. And that's really scary for some people. A lot of people really value their privacy. But what's more valuable than our privacy? It's truth. And that's what the new kingdom is going to be all about. That's what it is all about. Whether or not we're worthy for it is, in great part, whether or not we're open to the truth. The truth, in some ways, and in some really important ways, is universal. One of those universal truths, unifying universal truths, is that the Messiah has returned, that his name is Lord Rael, that his name means the Word of God, that in order to gain entry into the kingdom, we must obey him. And what are his commandments? Love God and love each other. I love you. See you tomorrow.